I was really interested to get your perspective on how the first, like, because you specialize in the first 6 years of
Hmm.
a kid's life, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so, how the emotional well-being of a kid from the ages 0 to 6 affects their emotional well-being throughout the rest of their life.
Dear me, I could talk all day about it. So it starts in the womb. It starts in the womb. So when you're pregnant with a baby, um, all of your emotions, the baby feels them, and it triggers all sorts of different hormones. And so, for instance, this is a one fact I remember from teaching. If you have massive amounts of stress around week, I think it's 14, then the fetus secretes something called lipase, which makes them more prone to obesity as an adult. And that's kind of just within the womb. But once the little one pops out, have you heard of attachment theory, Jack? Have you ever heard of that?
No.
So it's a really, really it was kind of coined in the 1960s by a guy called John Bowlby, and then later on in the 70s, a lady called Mary Ainsworth did these experiments called the stranger situation, and what they looked at was the separation between a child and its mum, and it was they did it on kids that were 18 months old, um, and what they looked at was how the child was when you left them and they were all alone, how the child was when you left them and with a stranger, and how the child was when you returned to them. And from that experiment, and I think they did 2,000 children, so it wasn't small, it was really large, they found that there's three attachment styles. So number one is secure, so it means that when I was talking about containing your child in that kind of emotion, that's a secure attachment. So you would know that your mum or dad or your main carer has your back. No matter what, you can always go to them. They expect nothing of you in return for their love. So that's secure attachment. And only 47% of the population have that attachment style. It's not it's not the it's more than average, but not predominant. The next one is an avoidant attachment style, which means that when you were little, your needs weren't really met. So you probably weren't played with, you weren't spoken to, so what you learnt was to be self-sufficient. So you learn, this is my saddest attachment style. You know nobody's coming to rescue you, so you just get on. And the last one is an ambivalent attachment style, which means that your parent is sometimes available and sometimes not. So what you learn is that in order to get your parents' attention, you need to create a fuss in some way, shape, or form. Um, and none of them, so the two that I mentioned at the end, it doesn't mean that you had a terrible childhood or anything. It just means that that was the relationship that you had with your parent. And that initial relationship, the blueprint, sets you in your blueprint for relationships for the rest of your life. I know
That's
you'll have to go and read
fascinating.
about it when I come off because it's so massive. It's too big to. So I'll send you some stuff if you like, Jack.
Okay, I would love that. Yeah.
And there's another one which is a mixture of them all, and that's if a child has been abused, and that's far out on the other spectrum. But yeah, so that's kind of, so if you can think of that person with the different attachment styles, that's, so if you're an avoidant person and nobody's ever come to meet your needs, then you're going to bottle all your feelings up and you're never going to tell anybody, and that can lead to like obviously mental health conditions. And does that make sense?
So it does. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's fascinating. One I
Mm,
want to touch on more was you talked about the ambivalent
yeah,
attachment
yeah.
style and how like a child had to adapt to get their parents' attention. They thought they had to do something special
Yeah,
almost. Do you think that that is where a lot of people pleasers come from?
absolutely. Definitely. It's often linked to parents who've maybe had a mental health condition or maybe misused substances, or even I think now that would be in the extremes, but I think now doing the job I've done for the last 10 years, I think it's because we're so busy. I think so, so I don't know, what your experience is. I know your mum ran her own business. I saw that on the podcast, and it's nobody's fault. I'm parent of 3 kids, worked full time. I didn't have enough space and time, and I wonder if that's the cause for the emotional difficulties in your age group, Jack, because we are definitely the first generation of parents that have had to do it all, like all. And I wonder, yeah.
Right. Like it's no longer normal to have a stay-at-home parent.
I don't think so, do you?
I don't think so either. I wonder if that's different across like cultures. We're both in like although we live in different countries, I think the culture of the UK and the US are fairly similar. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. That because there's less time allocated towards children at this young age, they realize that they have to behave in a certain way, or even if that's not true, they've come to the understanding that in order to get more attention, they have to behave in an attention-seeking manner.
Yeah. And that could be the really, really good, or the really, really naughty, or the really, like, or the really, really sad, or the really, really anxious. And we can imagine how hard my job is when parents come to me with a child that's acting out, and actually
Hmm.
usually I have to turn the spotlight onto the parent on the whole. So it's not always gratefully received, to be fair.
Right. Um, I think you mentioned that like a parent's characteristics are often reflected in their child's behavior, right? So, like if a child's acting out, that's probably a result of their parenting style, right?
More than likely, yeah, more than likely. Unless, sometimes I come across children who have an underlying diagnosis. But
Hmm.
on the whole, it's usually to do with the environment that they're in.
You just finished watching a clip from the Grateful podcast with me, your host, Jack Wagoner. If you enjoyed it, check out the full length episode right here or subscribe to the channel for more podcast episodes and videos like this in the future by clicking right here. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Stay grateful.